Hello everyone. Before we begin, take a second to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment telling us where you're watching from and what time it is right now. It really helps the channel grow and lets YouTube know you want more stories like these. Now let's begin. I was 34 years old when this happened, and up until that point, I'd spent most of my adult life on the road. I worked as a regional safety inspector for a construction supply company, which meant long drives, cheap motels, and towns that blurred together after a while. I didn't stay anywhere fancy. I stayed where the trucks stayed, places with flickering vacancy signs, ice machines that rattled all night, and parking lots that smelled faintly of oil and wet asphalt. In October of 2014, I found myself in a small town just outside of Amarillo, Texas. I don't even remember the town's name anymore. It was the kind of place you only stopped because you had to. One main road, a couple of fast food joints, and a single stretch of motels clustered near the highway exit. I checked into a place called the Sunset Trail Motor Lodge just after dark. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't good either. One story, U-shaped layout, doors facing the parking lot, thin curtains, buzzing lights. The kind of motel where you park directly in front of your room and hope nothing goes missing overnight. The clerk barely looked up when I checked in. Middle-aged guy, tired eyes, baseball cap pulled low. He slid the key across the counter and told me breakfast was from 6 to 8, like he said it 1,000 times a night. I grabbed my bag and headed out. That's when I noticed the car. It was parked near the far corner of the lot, backed into a space under a broken light. A dark green sedan, older model, maybe late 90s. No license plate on the back. The front plate was there, but it was bent downward like someone didn't want it easily seen. That alone wasn't enough to bother me. I'd stayed in worse places, but something about the way it was parked stuck with me. It wasn't parked in front of any room. Every other car in the lot was lined up neatly with a door behind it. This one sat alone, angled slightly wrong, facing the motel instead of away from it, like it was positioned to watch. I shrugged it off and went into my room. Around 9:30 that night, I ordered food from a nearby diner and ate sitting on the edge of the bed, half watching some rerun on cable. That's when I heard footsteps outside. Slow ones, not the casual stomp of someone heading to their room. These were measured, heavy, back and forth. I muted the TV and listened. The footsteps stopped right outside my door. I sat there, frozen, staring at the thin strip of light beneath it. After about 10 seconds, the steps moved on. I told myself it was nothing. People wander motel lots all the time. Smokers, drunks, insomniacs. Still, when I peeked through the curtain, I saw the same green sedan and a man standing beside it. He wasn't getting in. He wasn't unloading anything. He was just standing there, leaning against the trunk, staring at the motel rooms. He was tall, maybe 6 foot 2 or 3, broad shoulders, dark jacket zipped all the way up, hands in his pockets. His face was mostly shadowed, but I could tell he wasn't on the phone, wasn't smoking, just watching. I stood there longer than I should have, trying to figure out which room he belonged to. That's when he looked directly at my window. I dropped the curtain immediately, heart thumping harder than it should have. I didn't look again that night. Sometime around 2 a.m., I woke up to the sound of a car door opening, then closing, then opening again, over and over. I checked the time on my phone and lay still, listening. Each time the door opened, I could hear the faint click of the interior light turning on, then off, then on again. It wasn't someone getting something from their car. It was deliberate. I crept to the window and peeled the curtain back just enough to see. It was the green sedan. The man was opening the driver's door, standing there for a moment, then closing it, then walking around the car, then opening it again. He did this 3 times. Then he walked away from the car and began moving slowly down the row of rooms, stopping at each door, not knocking, just standing there for a few seconds before moving on. When he reached my door, I held my breath. I could see his shadow under the doorframe. He stood there longer than the others. I was close enough to hear his breathing. Then, quietly, I heard something that made my stomach drop. A soft metallic sound, like someone gently testing a handle. I didn't move, didn't speak, didn't even breathe until his shadow disappeared. I waited until morning with the lights on. When I stepped outside at sunrise, the green sedan was gone. I went straight to the front desk and asked the clerk about it. He stiffened immediately. "Which car?" he asked. I described it. He sighed, rubbed his face, and told me something I still think about whenever I pull into a motel parking lot. "That guy doesn't rent a room," he said. "He just parks." I asked him why he allowed that. He shook his head. "We've called it in before. He never breaks in, never damages anything. By the time cops show up, he's gone." I asked how often he came around. The clerk looked at me and said, "Couple times a month. Always different towns." Then he added something I didn't ask for. "People who disappear from these places. It's usually after nights like that." I checked out early. I still don't park under broken lights. I used to work the night shift at a roadside motel just off Interstate 81 in Virginia. If you've ever stayed somewhere like that, you already know the type. Do floors, exterior walkways, soda machine that ate your money, parking lot lights that buzz louder than the crickets. We weren't a destination, just a place people ended up when they were too tired to keep driving. I was 22 at the time and needed the job. Night shift paid a little more, and most nights were quiet. Check-ins slowed after midnight. From 1 a.m. to 5 a.m., it was usually just me, a pot of bad coffee, and the security monitor behind the desk. There were 6 cameras total, grainy black and white feeds, each covering a different section of the property. The parking lot camera was the biggest one, centered on the screen. That's the one I kept my eye on, because people don't realize how much happens in motel parking lots after dark. Most of the time, it's nothing. Someone loading their trunk, someone arguing quietly on a phone, occasionally a drunk guest trying the wrong door. But every once in a while, there's something that doesn't fit. This happened on a Tuesday night in late March. Cold enough that the lot was mostly empty. We had maybe a dozen rooms occupied. Around 1:40 a.m., a silver SUV pulled into the lot and parked near the far end under a working light. I watched the feed as a man stepped out. Mid-30s, maybe early 40s. Hoodie jeans, baseball cap. He didn't grab any bags. Didn't even shut the door right away. He just stood there for a moment, looking around. Then he closed the door and walked, not toward the office, but toward the stairwell that led up to the second floor rooms. I frowned. If he was checking in, he'd come inside first. If he already had a room, he'd park near it. He disappeared out of frame. A few minutes later, he reappeared. Same guy. Same slow walk. He came back down the stairs and returned to the SUV. I expected him to leave. Instead, he leaned against the hood and lit a cigarette. He stood there smoking for a long time. Too long. I checked the time. Nearly 10 minutes had passed. That's when I noticed something else. No other cars moved. No doors opened. No one came or went. But the man kept glancing up toward the second floor, specifically toward the far corner, room 214. That room had checked in around 11 p.m. A young woman traveling alone, according to the system. I remembered because she'd asked for extra towels and seemed nervous. Kept looking over her shoulder while she signed the paperwork. I zoomed the camera slightly, trying to get a better look at the guy. The feed stuttered, then froze. At first, I thought it was just a glitch. It happens sometimes. Old system. But the timestamp in the corner kept moving. 1:53 a.m., 1:54 a.m. The image didn't change. The man was frozen mid-motion, cigarette halfway to his mouth. I tapped the side of the monitor. Nothing. I checked the other cameras. Hallways were fine. Office cam was fine. Stairwell cam worked. Only the parking lot camera was frozen. I picked up the phone and called maintenance, forgetting for a moment it was the middle of the night. No answer. So I did the only thing I could think to do. I went outside. The night air hit me immediately. Cold and damp. The parking lot was quiet except for the hum of the lights. The silver SUV was still there, but the man wasn't. I scanned the lot, then looked up toward the second floor. Room 214's door was closed, curtains drawn. I stood there longer than I should have. feeling exposed, like I was the only person awake in the world. Then I heard footsteps above me. Slow, careful. I backed up toward the office entrance and went back inside, locking the door behind me. I pulled the camera feed back up. The parking lot camera was working again, but the SUV was gone. No headlights, no exit captured, just gone. At 2:07 a.m., the phone rang. It was room 214. The woman sounded shaky, whispering. "There's someone outside my door," she said. I asked her if she was sure. "I heard him walking," she said. "He stopped right outside." I told her to stay on the line. I switched to the hallway camera for the second floor. The image was clear, too clear. The hallway was empty. No one standing outside her door. No movement at all. But then I noticed something that made my skin crawl. The light above room 214 was off. Every other light in the hallway was on. Just hers was dark. I told her to lock herself in the bathroom and call 911. Then I grabbed the master key and started up the stairs, every instinct screaming at me not to. Halfway up, the hallway light flickered. When I reached the second floor, the hallway was empty. Room 214's door was ajar. I knocked and called out. No answer. I pushed the door open slowly. The room was empty. Bed untouched. Luggage gone. Bathroom empty. It looked like no one had been there at all. The police arrived 15 minutes later. They took my statement, reviewed the footage. The parking lot camera froze again when they tried to rewind it. The woman was never found. A week later, a detective came back and asked me something I still don't have an answer for. He asked why, at exactly 1:52 a.m., the camera timestamp showed a shadow moving toward the SUV, but no person visible. I quit 2 weeks later. I still don't trust security cameras. This happened to my family when I was 16. We were driving from Ohio down to Georgia to visit my aunt. My dad hated flying, so road trips were just part of our lives. By the second night, we were exhausted. It was already past midnight when we pulled off the highway and found a cheap motel with a flickering vacancy sign. 2 floors. Long parking lot. Same kind of place you don't remember the name of. We checked in quickly and parked right outside our room. Dad always did that, said it was safer, easier to load up in the morning. The lot was nearly empty. Just our sedan, a pickup truck on the far end, and one minivan near the office. Nothing felt wrong at first. We all went inside, ate vending machine snacks, and crashed. I fell asleep almost immediately. I don't know how long I'd been asleep when I heard it. A soft, scraping sound. At first, I thought I was dreaming. Then it came again. Scare rape. Pause. Scare rape. Like metal brushing against asphalt. I opened my eyes and saw my dad sitting up in the other bed, listening. "You hear that?" he whispered. My mom nodded. The sound was coming from outside, from the parking lot, and it was close, right outside our door. Dad grabbed his phone and quietly unlocked the door, just enough to peek out. He froze. Slowly, he shut it again and locked it. "There's someone under the car," he said. My stomach dropped. Under our car. We all went silent. No one moved. The scraping sound stopped. Then we heard breathing, low, controlled, right outside the door. Dad called the front desk. No answer. He called 911. While we waited, the breathing moved. We heard it shift closer to the front of the car, then toward the passenger side. Then a voice spoke, soft, almost casual. "Your exhaust is leaking," the voice said. "I'm trying to help you." No one replied. Dad whispered into the phone, giving the operator our room number, his voice shaking. The voice outside chuckled. "Come on," it said. "I just need you to pop the hood." My mom started crying quietly. We heard the sound again, scraping, followed by a dull thump as something bumped the underside of the car. Then silence. Minutes passed. It felt like hours. Red and blue lights finally flooded the room through the curtains. We heard shouting outside, doors slamming, footsteps running. When the police knocked, Dad didn't hesitate. He threw the door open. They swept the lot. No one was there, but under our car, they found something that made one of the officers swear under his breath. A pair of bolt cutters, fresh scrape marks along the exhaust pipe, and a thin trail of oil leading away from the car, straight toward the edge of the parking lot. The officer told us to pack up immediately. The motel manager claimed he'd heard nothing, said no cameras covered that section of the lot. We left before sunrise. A week later, my dad got a call from a detective. 2 nights after we stayed there, a family in another state reported a man hiding under their car in a motel parking lot. That time, he didn't leave. I was driving a charter tour bus in my early 30s, mostly retirees, church groups, casino runs, the kind of trips where nothing ever happens until it does. This was a late fall night somewhere between Pennsylvania and West Virginia. Fog had rolled in so thick you could barely see the road lines. Around 11:30 p.m., I got the call from dispatch to pull over and rest. Regulations, mandatory downtime. The nearest stop was a roadside motel tucked into a shallow valley just off the highway. The moment I pulled into the parking lot, I felt it. The place was wrong. Not abandoned, just closed in. Tall trees surrounded the lot on 3 sides. No streetlights beyond the motel's own flickering lamps. The fog pooled low, crawling across the asphalt. I parked the bus along the outer edge of the lot so we wouldn't block traffic. We checked in as a group, 22 passengers. Most headed straight to their rooms. A few stayed on the bus, asleep. I did my walk-around inspection like always. That's when I noticed the gate. At the far end of the parking lot, where the driveway met the road, there was a metal swing gate, painted white, chipped it and rusted. I was certain it had been open when we came in. Now it was closed. I went to the front desk. "Does that gate lock?" I asked. The clerk looked confused. Older guy. Nervous eyes. "We don't lock it," he said. "Never have." I asked him to open it anyway, just to be sure. He grabbed his keys and walked outside with me. We both stopped when we reached the gate. A thick chain had been wrapped through it and padlocked. The clerk went pale. "That's not ours," he said. I radioed dispatch, immediately no signal. My phone had 1 bar, then none. Behind us, the parking lot lights flickered, and that's when we heard it. The bus door closing. I spun around. The bus was still parked where I left it, but the interior lights were on now. Someone was inside. I ran back, shouting for security. The clerk stayed frozen by the gate. When I reached the bus, the door was shut. I unlocked it and climbed aboard. The aisle was empty, but every overhead compartment was open. Passengers' bags had been disturbed, jackets pulled out, personal items scattered, and the emergency exit in the back had been opened. I rushed outside and looked behind the bus. The fog was thicker there, swirling. Footprints were visible in the damp asphalt. Bare footprints. They circled the bus, not leading away, circling. One of my passengers screamed from the second floor of the motel. Lights flicked on in multiple rooms. People poured out into the walkways, confused, panicked. Then the motel's power went out. Everything went dark. In the blackness, something moved in the fog. Tall, too tall. I heard breathing again, slow and deliberate, somewhere near the bus. Someone whispered my name. I had never told anyone at the motel my name. Headlights finally appeared through the fog. A semi-truck passing on the highway. Just enough light. The shape vanished. The gate was suddenly open. No chain, no lock. Police arrived 20 minutes later. They found no signs of forced entry. No fingerprints. No footprints, except ours. Every passenger swore they'd heard someone walking the lot that night. One woman said she watched a figure stand between the cars, counting windows. The motel refunded our stay and asked us not to mention the incident. I never parked a bus in a motel lot again. This happened during a winter storm in northern Minnesota. I was driving home from visiting family when the weather turned fast. Snow came down so hard I could barely see the taillights in front of me. By the time I reached the next town, the highway was shut down completely. Every hotel was full, except one, a small roadside motel near the edge of town. The clerk looked relieved when I walked in, like he hadn't seen anyone in hours. "There's only one room left," he said, "but you'll have to park out back." The back lot was barely plowed. Snowbanks lined the edges, and only 2 other cars sat there, half buried. The wind howled through the trees behind the motel, carrying that deep, empty sound you only hear during blizzards. I grabbed my bag and hurried inside. Sometime after midnight, I woke up to a car alarm. At first, I thought it was part of a dream, but it kept going, wailing, stopping, then starting again. I looked out the window. The back lot was lit by a single floodlight. Snow drifted sideways through its beam. The alarm was coming from a dark sedan parked 2 spaces away from mine. No one was around it. I waited, expecting the owner to come out. No one did. After nearly 10 minutes, the alarm cut off. The silence felt worse. Then my phone buzzed. An emergency weather alert. Blizzard warning. Stay indoors. Travel ISNOT advised. I set the phone down, and the alarm started again. This time, something was different. With each flash of the sedan's headlights, I saw movement near the tree line. At first, I thought it was just blowing snow, but when the lights went dark between flashes, the shape was gone. When they came back on, it was closer, tall, thin, standing between the cars. I couldn't see a face, just the outline. The alarm stopped abruptly. The headlights stayed off. The lot went dark. I watched, holding my breath. Then my own car alarm started. I dropped to the floor below the window. Footsteps crunched through the snow outside my room. Slow, heavy. They stopped right outside my door. The handle didn't move. Instead, I heard breathing, raspy and wet on the other side. My phone buzzed again. Another alert. Emergency services ARE temporarily unavailable DUETO weather conditions. The breathing stopped. Footsteps moved away, circling the building. I stayed awake until dawn. When the storm finally cleared, the parking lot looked untouched, except for one thing. The dark sedan was gone. No tire tracks, no footprints. Just my car and handprints pressed into the snow on my hood. Long fingers stretched too far apart to be normal. I drove straight home and never stayed in a roadside motel again during winter.